The difference, I think, it's basically in how you view the process. If you just want to skip the process and get to the result, you're going to fail. As simple as that, you're going to fail. Like, because every goal, everything that you want to achieve has a process, and you need to go through the process. If you don't go through the process, you won't learn, and you won't get it right. When you want to skip the process, that's called toxic perfectionism.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fluency Project, the podcast where language learners unlock their potential. We are on a mission to empower language learners by sharing practical tools, new ways of thinking, and inspiring stories so you can break through barriers and thrive in your language journey. My name is David Herrera. I am your host, and in every episode, I will sit down with polyglots, educators, and everyday learners who have cracked the code. Together, we are going to explore the habits, strategies, and aha moments that make fluency achievable for you. Today's episode is brought to you by thefluencyproject.com. If you are in a journey to learn Spanish, English, or French, you are in luck because we are opening our calendar for free assessments on your level on these languages and helping you to craft the best way to learn. Follow the link in the show notes and you will be able to schedule your 100% free language assessment spot. I would recommend to do it as soon as you can because we have limited spots and we just open those once a week. With that said, let's dive into today's conversation. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Miguel. Miguel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And well, let's dive in, Miguel. As an engineer and senior technical support professional, could you share how your language journey influenced your career path?
Well, it's been an amazing journey. Actually, without my English journey, I wouldn't be right now working as a technical support engineer. Probably I would be an engineer. Actually, it's something that I really like. But the process of me learning English is the one that started the whole thing. Actually, I started working in BPO along around 8 years ago or so as a technical support engineer, as a technical support representative, and after that, well, it's been working all just all just fine. Actually, I've been learning a lot. I've been growing. Actually, I'm in the position right now of being a technical support engineer.
That's great. So you're bilingual in English and Spanish, and that combination has given you a unique edge. How does this linguistic versatility translate into a competitive advantage in your field?
Well, there are multiple advantages and or multiple reasons why it became an edge or an advantage compared with actually other people. Funnily enough, for example, during college, while I was uh, doing my bachelor's degree in mechatronic engineer, knowing another language, in particular English, gave me one important advantage, and that was information. It gave me access to information that was only in English. In Spanish, you could find a lot of information in engineering, but you can find even a greater amount of a really great amount of information in English, being in programming, being in math, being in physics, also being in mechanical design. You could find a lot of videos in YouTube, a lot of articles, and actually the biggest scientific publications for engineering or for any science actually are in English. So that gives you the advantage of having access to a lot of information.
That's absolutely true. I agree with that. When you learn a new language, uh, if it's English or whatever language that you want to learn, that opens possibilities. You can find a lot more information, even a lot more entertainment sometimes. So yeah, absolutely true. So okay, I want to understand, beyond vocabulary,
Mhm.
how how has learning a language transformed your personal or professional growth? Is there any like special or specific transformation that you have seen during your professional path?
Mm, I think one of the most interesting things that I think English has given me, it's the capacity of the capacity of learning or expand my cultural horizons. I don't know how to put it, but normally when you learn a new language, you are not only learning new words or a new grammar, but also you're learning a new culture. Actually, that gives you access to new cultural insight. Also makes you think different about the world, about your life. Actually, for me, has been that possibility of learning from another culture and also integrating parts of that culture in myself.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. Well, at the beginning, you mentioned that if you weren't learn English, your life could be really different today.
Mhm.
How come? How is that shaping the a different Miguel, like 10 or 15 years ago to the Miguel today? How was that journey?
The first thing will be access to different opportunities. Um, as I mentioned, well, here in Colombia, the amount of people that actually speaks English is not really that high. It's been growing throughout the years. Actually, more people of the new generation is learning English, and actually, you can find even more people right now that are around the 18, 19-year mark that know how to speak English or at least know the basics. But when I started, actually, it wasn't that big of a group. So that gives the opportunity of, for example, uh, in regards of a job or getting an employment, you could basically double your salary just by knowing English, even if you don't have any other skill, even if you don't have a degree or if you don't know any technical skill, you can any hard skill, you can still just because you learn English, you can double your salary. Actually, that's been my experience or the experience that I've seen. Because before working as a technical support engineer, I work as a customer service rep, and you know that for Spanish customer support, it's basically just the minimum wage, while bilingual technical support it's double that, or in some cases it's even more. So that's one of the things that I think has given me, and also that has given me the opportunity to do other things like studying, also start, I don't know, say being a growing both in the social side, because it gives you also the opportunity to meet other people and access other types of entertainment that normally you will need to save more or to I don't know. I think that would be it. Like basically, it gives you other opportunities. It gives you it opens the door to different opportunities in the social, economics, or professional life.
That's absolutely right. And I love the way that you use the word opportunities because uh, by learning a new language, you open the doors to new opportunities. Um, and as you mentioned, when I learned English, I was able to talk to a lot of different people, to start new conversations with with new possible, employers and potentially getting a new job.
Mhm.
So that opening of eyes as well, that actually there is something here, I feel is very important. So thank you for sharing that and sharing that specific word. I feel that opportunity or a new language is key for a new opportunity.
Yeah,
So
certain.
I bet that you faced a lot of different hurdles, a lot of different, and probably made some mistakes and things like that. So every learner at the end faces fears and have to do or have to make mistakes. So what was your biggest hurdle in achieving fluency, and how did you conquer it?
I think my biggest hurdle, and actually, I think everyone's, or at least a big majority of people that is learning the biggest hurdle that they face is shame or the fear of making the ridicule or making mistakes. We as persons or we as humans usually try to get everything right the first time for some reason, but actually making mistakes is part of the growing process. I remember when I started learning English in Mexico, my pronunciation wasn't really good. Actually, my pronunciation right now is not perfect. Um, but I remember one thing that I had with the person that I was working with at the moment. I was working in the pronunciation of the word sheet, that is for a piece of paper. And
Mhm.
usually I tend to make the mistake to say shed. That
Right.
is another different thing. So it was really funny because I needed to work at that a lot, and I made a lot of mistakes, and it was pretty embarrassing. Like if in the middle of the conversation you just say that, other people will look at you and say like, What did you just say?" But
So
you just gotta take the bullet. Like say like, "Hey, I'm learning. I am trying to say this. I was trying to refer to a piece of paper, but actually I took about poop." So I think that the very first obstacle is losing that fear, like losing that, actually accepting that you're gonna be making the ridicule, that you're gonna be that you're gonna be sound weird, that you're gonna be making mistakes. Actually, that's something that you can only overcome by doing it, by jumping.
that's right.
Like try it every time. Actually, I remember a long time ago. I was with a well. Actually, I had a girlfriend around some years ago, and actually we went to a meeting. And then that in this meeting, the speaker or the person that was there, uh, this person spoke English. And actually, when we went to greet this person, I started speaking English with this person. Although this person already spoke Spanish, I wanted to speak English. I remember that my girlfriend said like uh, that was a little bit pretentious. Like I was just wanted to show off that I spoke English. But actually, that was not my intention. My intention was just to keep practicing, even though I could make a fool of myself speaking English with someone that actually uh, natively speaks English and also could speak in Spanish. It would be the easiest. It would be easiest for me to speak Spanish with this person. But I decided to speak English just to keep practice. To I don't know. Also, I found it pretty. I find that people find it pretty flattering when they're visiting some other place when when they get spoken in their native language. Like for example, if you go to the United States or if you go as a tourist to Europe and you are buying something and someone speaks to you in Spanish, it feels really good. You feel a little bit important at that moment. So I think that's the basic. Like that's one thing. That's another thing that I would say that one needs to overcome is that you need to care less about what the people think of you. or at least not not care that much. Actually, ask for feedback, and particularly if it's someone that already knows the language, ask them like, "Hey, how can I improve?"
That is a great approach, and I feel that that is one of the most important things that you can do in order to learn a language. Just overcome the fear of speaking, and just put yourself in there and try to make some sounds, even if
Yeah,
that sounds silly or dumb or anything. You have to do it, and that is the way that you learn. If you don't do it, it is gonna be really really hard to learn a language and not be able to speak it. So there is one word that stood out to me while you were speaking, and it's about perfection. And sometimes that because you want to be perfect, you want to sound perfect, and you want the perfect class, and you want the perfect practice. What do you think about perfection and how or well, I will say, what do you think about perfectionism and how to overcome that blocker?
yeah. Perfectionism is a really deceitful trap. Like perfectionism, I don't know if I have another word for it, but the idea of perfectionism, like, hey, I need to just get it perfect. I think it's not healthy, but I think it's healthy if you think like, hey, I need to improve every day until I reach a perfect English or a perfect new language. That's a good idea, and the difference, I think, it's basically in how you view the process. If you just want to skip the process and get to the result, you're going to fail. As simple as that, you're going to fail. Like, because every goal, everything that you want to achieve has a process, and you need to go through the process. If you don't go through the process, you won't learn, and you won't um, get it right. When you want to skip the process, that's called toxic perfectionism. The idea that you just want to get the result on the first try or on the second try. And actually, another thing that I would say that one thing that could help you overcome that, it's understanding that really nobody's perfect. Actually, in Spanish, I've been speaking Spanish for well, my whole life, 33 years, or a little bit less. As a baby, I didn't speak Spanish, but or at least the first year or the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Uh, but even after 30 or so years of speaking Spanish, I don't speak, don't write, don't understand, don't read perfect Spanish. I do with it. I'm pretty good at writing. I'm pretty good in grammar in Spanish, but I know that I'm not perfect. I'm not close to that. I know that even a person with a PhD degree on Spanish will still commit mistakes or make mistakes. So
Mhm.
if someone with a lot of experience would make mistakes, why wouldn't I?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And you have to complete the process. And I love that idea because the process is what actually gives you the fluency and not just um yeah, it's not just because it's because you have to follow the process. And in that process you start taking bits and parts of the fluency that you want to achieve. At the end of the day, you just learn and develop different ways to pronounce things just because you're practicing and doing it and following the process. So I really love that concept.
Mhm. Thank you.
So you already mentioned before as well that you weren't afraid to try your English and to speak with people and just try it and see what happens. Um, do you use any other tool or unconventional tactic that significantly boosted your progress?
Um, when I got out of high school, I only knew the basics of the language. I only knew some basic grammar, the classic to be verb that is basically taught in every year in high school.
That's right.
It's actually a recurring joke among Latin. I don't know if it's everyone, but here in Colombia, it's like every year you start your English course talking about the to be verb.
That's right. Yes.
So but my English wasn't that far from it. I think the thing that really helped me was committing to a routine. But a really weird tactic that I use is like actually I start listening to like a talk, something like a TED talk, and actually I
Uh-huh.
try to understand what the person was saying and try to write what the person was saying. So like a transcribing what the
Hmm.
person was talking about. Actually, I started like that, and actually, I had a person in English that was listening also to this talk, and he would review what I wrote. And at the beginning, honestly, I couldn't write in an hour. I couldn't write more than a couple seconds, and
Of course. Yeah.
that was annoying because you would think that a couple seconds is at least two words, but the funny part is that when you're speaking, a couple seconds could be a whole phrase or even two phrases, like around 10 or so words, and getting each one of them right, it was really hard. So at the beginning, I just got a couple right, and I even got most of them wrong. Like I just could write a couple, and both will be wrong. And the person that helped me correct was saying like, "No, that's totally off. That's totally not what he was saying." But I keep at it. I keep trying over and over and over. It became annoying because the person that was helping me correct, he was listening to the speech, and I was also rewinding it all the time, like
Hmm.
a couple phrases over and over and over again. But I think that repetition helped me get a hang or understand the pronunciation of that specific word or that specific phrase. And with time, is I started improving. I remember that after like 2 or 3 months, I was writing like 5 to 10 seconds. It's not a huge progress, but it was progress.
But
And
yeah, and I think that that is the most important thing. It's a
yeah,
progress. It's a process. As you mentioned at the beginning, it's a process. You don't do everything perfect in the first day, not even in the first month, not even in the first 3 months. But the consistency in the process is what gives you, what you are looking for. For how long did you do that?
I did that for around a year or so. Actually,
Wow.
at the end of the year, actually, I finished that talk. I finally finished that part. It was around an hour or so long, so it was a real challenge to do that in that whole year. Um, I still remember that talk. I haven't listened to it in a while, but actually I know it kind of by memory. Sometimes when I hear about it or someone talks about it, I start reciting in English, and actually it reminds me of that process. It reminds me of all those times actually doing that. Now that you mentioned it, I'm really grateful for remembering the process because normally when I think about it, I think about the success. Like I finish it, I achieve it, I finish the talk, I finish transcribing the talk, but I rarely remember those first days. And we as people tend to do that. Like we tend to remember the goal, the achievement, the big thing to show, but we don't remember the start, how we began the process.
How we get there.
Yeah,
We are very easy to forget everything that was hard. We're usually happy with the reward. What I'm feeling right now, though. I get it, but it's important to remember the whole path because that in that process is where you find meaning to what you're doing.
yeah.
And yeah, I absolutely agree with that. So, well, that has been a great conversation, Miguel. Thank you very much for taking the time to talking to us today. I want us to close our conversation today with two things. First, if our listeners take one thing from today, what small daily action will have the biggest ripple effect in learning language? What do you think?
I think one small thing that everyone can start doing is, it's a little bit weird, but talk to yourself and try to talk to yourself in that language. Like, I don't know, if you're going in the street and you see a car and it's a blue car, then think to yourself, that's a blue car. Or you see a child crying, that child is crying, or that child is sad. Like those small things, practice with yourself. Like if you don't have someone to help you practice, or you are too busy to set an appointment to practice or anything, practice with yourself. Do small things. Start thinking when you're gonna grab your toothbrush. Think, this is my toothbrush. This is the color of my toothbrush. I'm gonna brush my teeth, and do it. Like through that action, actually is how you learn. Actually, kids learn that way. Like they don't start their life knowing grammar and things like that. They start picking up things like their mom or their dad says like, this is a car, and their kids start repeating, this is car, 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 until they start understanding that what is a car, and they start extrapolating that knowledge, that now they see a car in the street and they say, hey, that's a car. And even it's very common that you have, when you're having kids, or when you have kids around you, that they start playing to recognize objects. That's a really small game. It could, maybe people think it's silly, but it's how they learn. Like repetition, repetition, and when you repeat something over time, at the end you start grabbing that knowledge from that repetition. Not exactly the car word or anything like that, but you start understanding like this. um in engineering, when you for example, in programming, when you talk about artificial intelligence, that's something that we are using a lot right now. Basically, an artificial intelligence is trained normally to repetition. You input a lot of data, and the software tries to figure out what that data means, and that's how it works. That's artificial intelligence is based on that, on how we work, and it's through that repetition, through that input on the information that we're receiving. Eventually, we start figuring out like, this is this, and this. For example, when we pronounce a word, over time we start understanding, hey, this sounds like this, and I this group of words always sound like this, so I can use it every time that I find this syllable. So that's something that you learn over time through repetition, to try and error.
Yeah, and you start making associations within,
Mhm.
you know, forms and sounds and even colors and all that. That's a theory, I think, when my wife mentioned that sometime. That's a theory of learning, and that is how you associate things. So yeah, that's a great thing. The second part, the second last question that I want to ask you is pretty much related to the last one, but I want you to give us a challenge for our listeners. A small challenge that they can do for the next couple of weeks and that they can start doing it today so they can start improving their fluency and their learning language.
Wow, that's a difficult one. A challenge that would help everyone. I think a good challenge. I would think that challenge yourself to make mistakes, like intentionally. I know that sounds silly because we don't want to make mistakes, but intentionally make mistakes. Particularly if you're learning a new language, make mistakes, because if you intentionally put yourself there, uh, actually you get rid of the shame. It's a pretty easy way, like intentionally get wrong. At the beginning, it will be a little odd, but I'm guessing after a couple of weeks, you will totally lose your feelings of shame about the language, and you will like, huh, whatever. And then you will start learning because you will stop caring about what other people think. So you will start talking more. I think that's a challenge that I would give everyone. Like, make mistakes.
Awesome. Well, Miguel, thank you very much for joining us today to the podcast. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me here and for this opportunity. And thank you to your audience.
Absolutely. See ya.
See you. Take care.
Thank you for listening this episode of the Fluency Project. I wish we helped you find your way to learn a new language and that you can use all these tools to help you in the process. Before you go, don't forget about 3 things. First, share this episode with those you know are learning a new language so they can start getting the tools to thrive. Second, leave us a review in the platform you like. That will help us to reach more language learners. And third, don't forget to secure your free language assessment using the link in the show notes. I'll see you in the next episode to keep growing and learning together. Until next time.